exposing the propaganda and challenging you to use your brain. It's time to tap into the truth.
Yes, that's right, ladies and gentlemen. It is indeed time to tap into the truth. Welcome to tonight's broadcast. I hope you are having a great Friday wherever you are. This is your ever so humble host, Tim Tapp, coming to you live from historic Roane County, Tennessee. Glad to be back with the Spreaker folks. I have been absent for a little while. Unfortunately, I've had issues in the personal life in regards to health-related items, myself and another family member, as well as additional work hours at my other job. At any rate, it has made things a little more difficult to get here. I am apologetic to the fans and to the listeners and to the folks that like to listen to what I have to say just so they have something else to complain about. Regardless, if you are listening, I do appreciate it. Thank you for tuning in tonight. Like I said, apologies for being away so long, and it has been nearly a month, which was absolutely shocking when I took a look at it. But we are back. This is Tap Into the Truth, and we are going to get into things this evening. Plenty to talk about. Plenty of things have transpired since my last broadcast, and it seems only fitting that while we are in this rather historic week, that we could not let the entire week go by without broadcasting here on Spreaker. Before I get any further into this episode, though, I would like to go ahead and remind everyone that Tap Into the Truth is also available here. It's available through iTunes. You can find the Tap Into the Truth Blog Talk edition on Stitcher.com, and you can find both this and the other broadcast on TuneIn.com. So if you're looking for an additional way, or if you're looking for one of those apps, you can find us there if you care to take a look. Also, while I'm on the subject, I would like to let everybody here know that I was a guest this past Monday on Lady Patriots Speaking Out. They were doing a special show on talk radio, and they were actually interviewing various talk show hosts, and I was honored enough to be part of that. So I would certainly recommend checking them out. You can find them on Blog Talk as well. All that put aside, I also would like to put a special shout out to Operation Underground Railroad. I will put a link in the show description to the website. The long and the short of it is, they are an operation that goes around rescuing children and trying to put an end to international sex slave trading. They are a group of former CIA, FBI, former Navy SEALs, former Army Green Berets, and they are doing excellent work in rescuing children from a literal living hell. I first came in contact with this organization by a friend of mine, calling me up, asking me what I knew about it. They had heard about them listening to the Glenn Beck show. And I really hadn't known anything about them before then. I did a little bit of research, and what I found seemed to be completely legitimate. So what I am asking you to do is to also take a little time, go look at their website. Like I said, I'll put a link in this show description. I also have links available at tapintothetruth.com. Or, of course, you can just tap in operationundergroundrailroad.org, and that will take you there. You don't have to do any of those things. But from everything I can find out, they seem to be completely legit. If you find out otherwise, please let me know. But in the meanwhile, I have dedicated space on my website to help promote them, to send traffic their way. And all I'm asking from you is take a few minutes, go check them out, decide for yourself, and see if maybe you can't be part of a solution. I think it's an honest-to-goodness, real-world solution for a problem that no government seems to be either able or willing to deal with. So check them out, and we'll go from there. Mentioned earlier that this is indeed a historic week, and it is indeed exactly that. 3 different reasons. It's a time of remembering, in so much as in this past week we have had the anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's delivery of the Gettysburg Address. Today, of course, it still being November 22nd, is the 50-year anniversary of the assassination of JFK. Both of these are events that changed the course of American history. The Gettysburg Address, of course, one of the most iconic speeches of any American president. Oddly enough, written while en route, jotted down while Lincoln was on a train on his way, just some ample thoughts. He even went so far as to say in the course of the address that the things that will be said that day will not long be remembered. I'm afraid Mr. Lincoln got that one wrong, because nobody has forgotten the Gettysburg Address. Meanwhile, as I'm sure you have noticed if you have paid attention to any media today, the remembrance of JFK and the change in the course of American history that took place as a result of his assassination cannot be underscored and cannot be overplayed. It was a tragic day in American history. Today, John Kennedy is remembered mostly as a well-loved and well-respected president. The feelings at the time were very different. They were treacherous times, and that was well demonstrated by the fact that he was a victim of a shooting during a public engagement. At that point in time, the American people did not believe that such a thing could happen in the United States to our president. Regardless of what your individual politics are, and regardless of what you're thinking, no one will ever forget the phrase, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. That has been twisted. The meaning has been changed. The progressives have tried to twist it to mean something else. Conservatives have taken it in a different route. And the truth of the matter, the saddest fact of all, is the fact that John Kennedy was basically very conservative at his core. And as honored and hallowed as the young man was in his day, and as he is looked upon now, if he was a candidate running for office today, he probably would not be accepted or welcomed by either major political party. Far too conservative to be part of the Democrats. Perhaps just a bit too radical. Excuse me. Perhaps just a bit too radical to be part of the Republican Party. In fact, he would probably be more closely associated with Tea Party politics, because the man had principles and he was willing to stand by them. That's not to say that he was necessarily a great guy. By all accounts, he was a bit of a cad. He was a womanizer. He was Bill Clinton's hero. Only, we're talking about the difference between Marilyn Monroe and Monica Lewinsky. Well, I guess there's a reason why he was the hero. He was a role model, but wasn't quite getting there. At any rate, regardless of all that, no one can doubt or question the impact that these events had in our history. But this week was also a historic week because a protection for the voice of the minority that had been in existence in the United States Senate for over 200 years was obliterated yesterday. Senate Leader Harry-Reid took to the floor, broke Senate rules in order to change Senate rules, eliminating the ability of an opposition party to have a filibuster, very limited at the moment, directly to judicial and executive appointments, not to include the Supreme Court. But we'll get into that a little bit later. The so-called nuclear option was on the table. There's a couple of other things I'd like to get to today, and we're going to go ahead and start with that. Not the least of which is the fact that green bullets are once again on the agenda for our military. This green agenda continues to worm its way into weakening our country. And that's what it's doing. It's destroying our economy because it's being artificially propped up, and other options are being artificially forced out of the marketplace by regulations as opposed to marketplace conditions. When the green products that are pushed onto the market become the better choice, they will dominate the market. But the natural market forces are not being allowed to work here, and in this particular case, the newest thing, as reported in Breitbart today, the Army is giving up stopping power for green bullets. Now, both Breitbart and the Daily Caller have been reporting on this trend for a while. The Army has officially announced it, and it is out there for all the world to see. You can find it from a multitude of other sources if you don't like those particular two that I have named. But the Army is switching from lead bullets in many small caliber arms to a more, quote, environmentally friendly round. And the switch is going to be finalized in 2014. Even though the lead bullets are tried and true, while the stopping power of the green bullet is already being questioned. Now, in case you're wondering why that's a big deal, let's not forget that the Army is still in the business of breaking things, blowing stuff up, and killing people. That is essentially what a military's purpose is. And we have that because if you want peace in the world that we live in, it has to be dawned through the projection of strength. Now, I know a lot of folks, especially a lot of the more liberal-minded people out there, don't care much for that philosophy. They think it's nonsense. They disagree with it. But we see time and time again. Let's take Iran, for example, shall we? When Jimmy Carter was president, the Iranians stormed the U.S. Embassy and held American citizens hostages and refused to negotiate and refused to release. The projection of, I'm willing to talk about it, wasn't enough to negotiate anything and save those American lives. But the minute the election for Ronald Reagan was a done deal, well, they didn't wait around for the inauguration. The Iranians let them go because they were afraid. All they knew about Ronald Reagan were those cowboy movies they'd seen him in, and they didn't know how much fact that was. So the projection of strength is very useful in the creation of peace. Because when you have people that are only going to be persuaded by other violence or the potential thereof, you need to come from a position of strength. I mean, I don't care if you like it or not. It's still the way it is. Period. There are some people you cannot talk to. But at any rate, according to the reports in the Daily Caller, the Army switched to a, quote, green round for its 5.56 millimeter ammo back in 2010. Now, those were the bullets that are used for the MP4s and for an AR-15. This ammo is referred to as enhanced performance rounds, even though, according to a Fox News report, they were raising suspicions over just how enhanced the new rounds would be. In fact, they quoted ballistic experts who said that the new rounds won't be substantially more deadly. Now, that was a quote. Assuming that enhanced round for a bullet would be an increase in its deadliness. Now, they said that it would not be substantially more deadly than the old ones. Nevertheless, the Army is pressing on and making the 7.62 millimeter bullets environmentally friendly by 2014. The Army predicts that the use of the green 5.56 millimeter and the 7.62 millimeter ammunition could eliminate the purchase of 3,683 metric tons of lead between 2013 and 2018. Now, call me old-fashioned, call me uninformed, call me whatever name you want to. Hey, it's not going to change anything I say or do. But what's the deal about trying to save lead? Is lead that big of an environmental issue at the moment I'm somehow not aware of? The truth of the matter is, if they're giving up stopping power, what's the point? When you put America's finest young men, young women, in harm's way, stopping power should be a top priority. Not because we really have some strong desire to go around just randomly killing people, but once they're in harm's way and face to face with people who are declared enemies of us, we the people, and of course of our allies as well, shouldn't we try to make the killing as efficient as possible, as quick as possible, as much stopping power as possible to eliminate the risk to the good guys? Now, call me silly, but I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that if we're sending our guys into a situation and they start getting shot at, hopefully the people they're going to be shooting back at are going to be the bad guys. And we want the bad guys neutralized, I guess would be a good word. We want them neutralized. We want the threat ended. Because if they're shooting at them, then they're probably going to be willing to shoot at us, too. You know, average, everyday, reasonably innocent, unsuspecting civilians. Now, call me crazy. Just a thought. Just an idea. I don't particularly like the idea of our men and women in uniform, whether they're directly defending our lives or on some kind of peacekeeping mission or helping to defend one of our allies, whatever that mission may be, I don't like the idea of them being out there with something that is not as effective in their toolbox to get the mission done because of a green agenda. And don't give me some crazy, ooh, you're just anti-environmental BS argument. Because I'm not anti-environmental. I'm just not a tree-hugging hippie moron. There are limitations. There are reasonable limits. And again, let me point out, when the green option becomes the better option overall, market forces will put it in a place where it moves ahead of the not-so-green option. Now, whether you like that or not, whether you believe that or not, I can't help you with that. You can either take my word for it, which I recommend you don't, or you can take some time, do your own research, and use your brain and figure out some stuff for yourself. And stop letting the folks on the other side of the political spectrum make the decisions for you, too. Find out for yourself. Anyway, I digress. Going to go ahead, take a quick break here, and then when we come back, we're going to talk about what has transpired with this, quote, nuclear option, and what it really means beyond that. Because whether you like it or not, it does mean bad stuff for Americans. And it means bad stuff for every kind of American. It doesn't matter what American you are. It's bad. And you're going to find that out the hard way. But we're going to discuss why in just a little bit. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Tap into the truth. Check us out at tapintothetruth.com for our latest blog posts and for links to all of our past broadcasts. Don't forget to like us on Facebook and to follow us on Twitter. That's Tap Into the Truth right here on Spreaker Radio.
Watching every move I make, recording every word I say. The system says it's working now, self-correcting, there are no questions to asked, no, none to be raised. Am I out of my head? Are they pushing you down? And am I out of my head?
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. Thank you for staying with us and coming through the break. This is Tim Tapp. I am your host, and you are listening to Tap Into the Truth. Welcome to tonight's broadcast once again. As I said before, I do hope you are having a great Friday evening. I hope you have had ample opportunity to reflect on today's anniversary, as well as earlier in the week, the anniversary of the Gettysburg Address. Those are monumental events. Real quick reminders, you can check out tapintothetruth.com, and I hope that you will. Always adding on new videos through the week on the home page, along with abilities to contact me near the bottom of the page. You can either send just a direct email, or you can send the full contact information if you like. Always welcome remarks and feedback, whether you like what you're hearing or whether you just want to argue a point or two with me. I welcome it. You also are more than welcome to find us at our Facebook page. It's Tap Into the Truth. And also follow us on Twitter. You can easily find both liking the Facebook page and following on Twitter from tapintothetruth.com, or you can simply look us up right here. Also, I would like to remind you, if you are listening to this show, please hit the follow button. That way you'll be kept up to date when we are broadcasting. You can check us out live, as I do always do this lovely show live. I love the fact that when you're on the air live, you don't have that safety net, and to me that's a little more fun. And to me that's the difference between podcasting and internet radio broadcasting, is when you're doing it live, you're broadcasting. You still get the podcast after the fact, and it's not like it's really that big of a difference. I don't see a distinction between the two. I'm not trying to knock anybody, don't get me wrong, but still would love for you to follow me. And as most of you who follow folks here on Spreaker know, once the show gets up to around 100 followers, they've got an opportunity then to submit their shows to iHeartRadio, and would very much like to be able to become a part of the iHeartRadio family. Be a great opportunity to continue to move the conservative ideology to a larger marketplace. At any rate, all that stuff aside, let's get to today's main topic, shall we? Ultimately, today, we now get to talk about what happened yesterday. Harry-Reid did what so many people thought they wouldn't do. I don't know why they thought that. The Democrats do not play by the same set of rules that the conservatives do. And please keep in mind, I said conservatives. Didn't say Republicans by themselves. The vote came down 52 to 48. The Senate voted yesterday, Thursday, November 21st, 52 to 48, that vote, like I said, to end the filibuster rule for all executive and judicial appointees except for the Supreme Court nominees, which would still need the 60-vote supermajority to end debate and move to a majority vote on confirmation. Now, the move, which has for some time now been referred to as the nuclear option, represents a historic power grab and a blow to the procedural prerogatives of the minority party in the Senate. All but 3 Democrats voted in favor. In 2005, when Democrats had inaugurated the practice of filibustering large numbers of nominees, then Minority Leader Harry-Reid railed against the GOP majority for threatening the nuclear option. That crisis ended in an agreement brokered by the bipartisan Gang of 14, which stated that nominees would only be filibustered in extraordinary circumstances, but that there would be no attempted rules changes in that Congress. The reason for the strong Republican opposition to recent nominees by the occupier, Mr. Barack Hussein Obama, has been the strong ideological bent that many of those nominees had, plus the determination of Barack to pack the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals by filling several vacancies. Now, this particular court decides important regulatory cases and has an otherwise low caseload for its current roster of 4 Democrat and 4 Republican appointed judges. Republicans have pointed out that the Democrats' proposed changes could be renewed and perhaps extended when Democrats are once again in the minority, allowing the GOP to retaliate by nominating conservative candidates who might not otherwise survive a filibuster. In a political environment requiring both sides to work together to solve pressing issues, Reid and his party may come to regret the fallout. The only way that Reid and company will regret this is if the American people stand up and tell these people that they are tired of the tyranny. If I had time to play the sound bites, there are literally dozens upon dozens of YouTube videos that you can go find for yourself. And again, this is one of those opportunities I say, do a little of your own research. I have listened to some of them. I have Joe Biden, when he was still in the Senate, one of his tirades against the nuclear option back when the Democrats were the minority, back in 2005. Have one of the videos of Joe Biden up there saying that it's an unprecedented and unacceptable bald power grab. And this was just at the threat of the nuclear option. There are comments from Hillary Clinton. There are comments from Harry-Reid. There are comments from Chucky Schumer. There are comments from almost any of the top-level Democrats, because, surprise, surprise, most of them, some of the stronger ones actually coming from the likes of John Kerry, and, of course, from Joe Biden, a plethora of Democrats railing against the threat of the nuclear option being put on the table, when that's all the Democrats had was the filibuster to try and stop. Now, it's amazing to me that time and time again that you see when the Democrats are in the minority, all these procedural tricks are acceptable, and it's absolute sacrilege to threaten to remove them. But as soon as they're the majority party, but they don't have a supermajority, suddenly it's okay to talk about doing these things in the interest of speeding things along and stopping the obstructionist behavior of the GOP. Now, make no mistake about it, ladies and gentlemen, the so-called progressives are desperately trying to stack the courts right now with judges that are agenda-driven and activist in nature. And that's the reason for this. That's why they want to push this. And that's why it's limited to these specific roles for now. But it's also a test. It is a test to see if you, the American people, are going to sit back and take it. Because I guarantee you that for as long as the progressives think that they are firmly in control, they're going to use this, and you're going to see the filibuster be taken away from other areas too. Now, they don't want to do it all at once. Again, this is part of the incrementalism. Things are speeding up because they think they've got you. They think they have every last one of us right where they want us, and that is with most of us still not even really paying attention, and the rest of us thinking it's too late to do any good. But they do still respond to pushback, and they are still afraid of you, the freedom-loving, American citizen, because there's still enough of you out there to facilitate change. And here's why every last one of you, whether you're conservative or whether you're liberal, why every last one of you should be irate at this little rule change. The Founding Fathers recognized the value of protecting the minority. That's why we don't have a true democracy as our form of government. It was meant to protect the minority. And it doesn't matter which minority you are. In this particular case, we are talking about exclusively the minority parties as they exist within the legislative body. But you see, because we have a representative republic, that minority still represents what should be a significant voice of the American people that should be heard and should have their opportunity to bring their case to the people and to the members of the Congress, regardless of what the point is. Whether you're in the House or whether you're in the Senate, if you're going to take to the floor to filibuster, it means that you're taking up a viewpoint that you feel your constituents need to have heard. It's an attempt to plead with others that may not be on your side at the beginning, but may not be strong enough committed to the other side of whatever said argument is, that they can't be swayed. But whether you sway someone away from what you feel like is a bad choice or a mob mentality, a rush to judgment, a knee-jerk reaction, or just something that's bad for your constituents, although others may benefit from it. Whatever the reason is, it is designed for your voice, because that's your representative who's going to stand up and do it. Your voice to be heard. You know that someone is there actually doing the job of representing you. Now, you as an individual may be on the other side right now. That's fine. I'm not attacking anybody's politics at the moment. I'm telling you that point blank, you should always be concerned, because while the Democrats were up at arms in 2005 at the threat of the nuclear option, which, by the way, the GOP at that time never even took to a vote. They didn't try to use the nuclear option. They threatened it. That's all they did. Now, before the Democrats started filibustering these nominees, the nomination process had never had a filibuster done. So in a lot of ways, it's the Democrats' own fault that they would need to do anything in the first place. The GOP never, nor had the Democrats before, or the Whigs, or anybody else that had ever been a political party of significance in the Senate, never had they filibustered nominees. They went through the confirmation committee, went through the regular everyday blah, blah, blah. Okay, we're going to answer your questions. We're going to ask you questions. We're going to try and convince people that you're either a good candidate for this position or you're not. And then we're going to have an up and down vote based on what happened in the committee. You're here in front of the confirmation committee, and then after that, we're going to take it to the floor. You're going to get your straight up and down vote. And that was the end of it. The Democrats started filibustering nominees. And then they're not happy with the practice when it works against them. So whatever they do with this filibustering of nominees, you could say is irrelevant, except for the fact that you must always watch what these people are doing. The minute it becomes acceptable to eliminate filibustering from any place where it's been established, it then becomes acceptable, equally acceptable, for it to be removed from any other policy or procedural activity. Now, if the Democrats are suddenly finding themselves in the minority again, after, I say, the 2014 midterm elections, for example, then I guarantee you the nuclear option just won't be an option. It's just not right. It's a unprecedented power grab. This is a silencing of the voice of the minority. Period. It's a violation of the very concept of what it means to be an American. I know a lot of the libs like to give the Founding Fathers a hard time because, they were slave owners. But they recognized the fact even then that what they had built within the Constitution, that slavery could not exist. They chose not to fight that fight then, but they knew it was going to come. And it ended up being fought by Lincoln and others after him. It didn't mean they weren't concerned about the minority voice, because they knew sometimes the right thing is the unpopular thing. To have a popular idea doesn't mean that it's the best idea. They didn't want a pure, true democracy because, as Benjamin Franklin was quoted as saying, sometimes democracy is as simple as two wolves and a sheep voting on what to have for dinner. I've said a multitude of times on this show and in conversations and in blog posts and in the social media, everywhere where I've been, I've said a multitude of times that the true test of how much authority and how much power you want any individual in our government to have should not be governed by how good of a job you think the current person can do in wielding that power, but how good of a job you would feel, how much of that authority, how much good of a job wielding that authority with the next guy or the last guy. If you are still an Obama-nite and you are still drinking the Kool-Aid, first of all, let me say a good old-fashioned Southern bless your heart. But beyond that, if you still think that this guy is Messiah-like and is worthy of just blind devotion and whatever authority that he wants to wield, the Constitution should not limit him, that's fine. But how would you feel if it was George W. with that power? How would you feel if it had been, I don't know, let's say Mitt Romney, who magically gotten into office? Would you feel good about him having that power? Would you feel good about Ted Cruz having that power? Mike Lee having that power? Representative Gomers from Texas? Would you feel good about those guys having the same authority and power that you want to give to Barack? If the answer to those questions, any one of those examples, is no, then you shouldn't be willing to let Barack have that either. The bottom line is the Constitution was designed to limit the powers and authority of the federal government so that we could live without tyranny. And that's the problem, ladies and gentlemen. This is one more example as we are in the process right now of moving from a soft tyranny to a hard tyranny in this country. It is up to us to stop it in its tracks and reverse it before it's too late. And that's going to take everybody waking up both liberal and conservative alike, we're going to have to band together because first and foremost, we are all Americans. And if you love freedom, if you like your individual right to choose, you're going to have to stand up for it. Period. Plain and simple. End of that discussion. And it is time to take to it now. There is no more time left. The parties, both parties, have betrayed us all. And it's time. Libertarians, unite. It's time. Ladies and gentlemen, that has to be tonight's show, and unfortunately I was just really starting to get worked up a little bit. At any rate, thanks for tuning in tonight. Hope you enjoyed it. And as always, don't take my word for it. Definitely don't take their word for it. Take a little time, do a little research, use your brain, and always be prepared to, work just a little bit in order to tap into the truth. Good night, everybody.